Good morning to you all, and a very, very, very big welcome and thank you for joining us today to celebrate with us the achievements of a 3-year national project, probably the biggest of its kind, which has managed to connect over 4,000 young people with roughly 2,000 older people living in care homes with some extraordinary outcomes, which you'll hear about shortly. My name is Tom Owen. I'm Director of My Home Life England, which is a national initiative promoting quality of life in care homes and other care settings. And we're one of the national partners working on this project, along with a charity called the Linking Network, whose expertise working with young people in schools and their schools linking program has helped support the program achieve its outcomes. Of course, the people who have really made this project a success are the schools, the care homes, and the 11 local organisations that have been at the front line, enabling magical and beautiful moments of connection between young and old to happen. And you'll be hearing from some of them later, including a few young people who will be telling us all about how they were involved in the project. Just to say that the project was funded through the I Will Fund. The I Will Fund is made possible thanks to the £66 million joint investment from the National Lottery Community Fund and the Department of Digital Culture, Media and Sports. And the Dunhill Medical Trust also acted as a match funder for this project and a supporter of the programme, and DMT supports the science and social change needed for healthier older age. Okay, so what have we got planned today? Well, we think that there'll be around about 200 people joining us today, which is amazing and exciting, and they're from all kinds of places, from schools and care homes. We have commissioners from public health, from education, from adult social care. We have academic researchers, policymakers and practitioners that have joined us. And we've got about an hour together today. And shortly I'll be handing over to the project team, who will be sharing with you how the project worked, what the national evaluation has told us about the outcomes we've achieved. And then a bit later on, we'll be sharing with you the tools and resources that we've created and offer you the opportunity to order free hard copy resources that we'll post to you over the next few weeks. Then at the end, we'll have some time with you to consider how we can work together to build on this strong foundation, to create wonderful connections that deliver well-being and social cohesion and quality of life within your local areas, and to create a movement where care homes and schools develop a long-term habit of working with one another across the country. So a quick word on housekeeping. First of all, luckily for me, you're all responsible for your own health and safety, so I don't have to talk you through what happens if the fire alarm goes off. But just to say, there is a Q&A function down at the bottom of your screen, it should be. So if you wish to ask a question, then put your questions in there, and we'll have time at the end to sift through some of those questions and to give answers. Please do use that as we go through. And just so you know, we'll also be recording this session. Right, so without further ado, I'm going to hand over to my colleagues within the project team. Firstly, Amy Locke and John Gibbon, who will be introducing the project. Over to you, Amy.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much for that introduction and welcome. So I work for the Linking Network, as Tom was saying, and my colleague John, who's also joining, is the project partner from My Home Life England. So we're delighted to be joined with you today and to be able to share this project with you. There is an increasing awareness of intergenerational practice in terms of the joy that it can bring and the mutual benefits for all involved. So firstly, we wanted to start just thinking a little bit about what is intergenerational practice. So one definition from the Beth Johnson Foundation states that intergenerational practice refers to initiatives that bring together older adults and young people or children in purposeful, mutually beneficial activities which promote greater understanding and respect between generations and contributes to building more cohesive communities. So intergenerational practice is inclusive, building on the positive resources that the younger and the older have to offer each other and those around them. We'd like to start by sharing a short video overview of our project, and I'm going to hand over to my colleague Amy, who's going to share that with you. Thank you, Amy.
Home Friends and Neighbours Intergenerational Linking is an exciting national social action project that's linking young people aged 5 to 14 with older people living in care homes. We have 11 projects located across England working to form sustainable connections between schools, youth groups and care homes. When the projects first began, younger and older people started by introducing themselves and getting to know each other. For some children, it was the first time they'd spoken to someone living in a care home. Since then, there have been so many creative ways that generations have linked together, despite the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic. There have been lots of shared artwork projects, words of wisdom exchanges, poetry performances, and storytelling sessions over video call. Others have been able to meet up in person for gift exchanges, theatre performances, exercise classes, and even nail painting. Nature activities have inspired some links, including planting bulbs in trees.
This project has been so important. It's helped to build community links and new friendships, much needed after the pandemic, as well as boosting younger and older people's sense of well-being. Both generations have learnt new skills, and young people have begun what we hope will be a long-term commitment to social action and caring for others.
Christmas, some children visited their linked care home and many sung carols together.
Connect with them and include them in your activities, because just because they're getting older and they might not be able to do as much stuff as a young child would be able to do, they still are developing new abilities of their own.
Thank you, Amy. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of an overview as we then go into a little bit more detail this morning. So first of all, we are delighted to be joined by a few of our young people who've been involved in the project. So we've got Henry from Stokes Punsford Primary School in Cornwall, who's been linking with Appleby Lodge Care Home. And we've also got Alice and Elizabeth from the Grange Primary School in Sefton, who've been linking with St Nicholas's Care Home. And they're going to share a little bit with us, just answer a couple of questions for us about their experiences. So we're going to start first of all with Alice and Elizabeth from Sefton. So girls, do you want to come forward so that we can hear you? That's perfect. And girls, my first question is, what was it that you liked about linking with a care home, and what was your favourite part?
What I liked about the seeing in the care home, I liked to see the residents smile and laugh. I enjoyed bonding with them and finding out about their personalities. We also love giving them Valentine's cards. I enjoy doing the activities that we plan to have fun with. These are some of the activities that we do. We had food with some of the residents and we talked to them to find more about their personality. We sing and dance and we sing and dance with Then next time we go there, we're going to be planting spring bulbs.
That sounds wonderful, girls. It sounds like you've had a really great experience with this project. And I wonder, why do you think that intergenerational linking is important?
Because the residents really don't get anyone to detail all the skills for them to see them, so they have someone like with them to make them happy, because they can't always, because they sometimes can feel lonely.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, girls. And thank you to the rest of your class that I can see behind you, who I think have also been involved. Do you want to give us a little wave, Year 4? Oh, that's perfect. Thank you very much for contributing there. That's really helpful to everybody. I'm now going to go to Henry. So Henry, can you tell us a little bit about your experience? So what did you like about linking with a care home? What was your favourite part?
Well, I met a lady at Chivarus, and she had a very interesting story to tell about how she had been from St Anne's all the way down here to Cornwall to go to Chivarus, and it was because she had to go to a hospital, and then the hospital sent her to a care home after they had helped her. And then she came all the way down to Cornwall to another care home, which was Chivarus, where I met her. And we had stories to exchange with each other.
That's wonderful. It's so great to hear about how you've really got to know a resident and find out a little bit about their stories. That's fantastic. And why do you think that intergenerational linking is important?
Because I think it's important that events, say, we were not involved in, we can learn about, not just from books and things, but from people's opinions in those events, like world wars and things.
That's wonderful. So you're hearing from real life perspectives from people. That's fab. And Henry, is there anything else that you want to tell us?
Not really. I just think the project's incredible.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And you're joined by your head teacher, aren't you, Henry?
Yeah, hi. Yeah. Henry and I are a bit of a double act. So I can tell you, yeah, Henry is fairly fabulous and has been fabulous in terms of his engagement with the project. And, really, I guess that the thing that drew us as a school into wanting to be part of this project was about, one of our values is about empathy. And I think Henry and I have talked a lot about how that's really helped him and all of us in having a better understanding of other people, young and old, and our shared experiences, and thinking about how how life has affected all of us, and things like pandemics and things like that. And it's been, yes, and Henry has been a real credit in that when he's with those residents, he's very engaging, and I think we've all got so much out of it. So it's been fabulous, hasn't it, Henry?
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences there, and great to hear about the impact and that it's had on you and the older people as well. So thank you so much, both of you, and to the children there from Year 4 in Sefton. So we're now going to think a little bit more about the project nationally and some of the outcomes and some of the impacts that that's had. So I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to hand over now to Dr. Bryony Jane, who's been our researcher for some of this project.
Hello. Yes, it's nice to be here to share the research with you all. So as you can tell from the video and from the input from the students, there's a growing interest in intergenerational practice. It's increased substantially in the last few years. And there's a growing body of research that demonstrates taking part in intergenerational activities can have wide-ranging impacts and provide benefits to all generational groups involved. So as part of this project, we conducted a review of the literature looking at papers published in the last 5 years And we found that the most commonly reported benefits that are best supported by the evidence fall into these three themes. So improvements in age-related attitudes, positive effects on wellbeing and social connectedness, and skills development and learning. So the project, the Care Home Friends and Neighbours Intergenerational Linking project, it's a national social action project connecting young people aged 5 to 14 from schools and youth organisations with older people living in care homes across England. So this project adopted an appreciative inquiry approach whereby the program was co-designed and delivered with local stakeholders, put at the centre of decision making to identify best practice for them and for going forward. So as the diagram on the slide shows, the framework included 11 local brokers or project leads located across England and who were each responsible for creating and facilitating 10 intergenerational links between schools and care homes in their local area, with support provided by the national team. So we obviously need to acknowledge that the project took place during the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is a time when schools and care homes in particular were experiencing high levels of restrictions and operational challenges. But the importance of finding ways to maintain social connections was at an all-time high. So for this project, we conducted a mixed method evaluation of the program. And this was conducted by collecting observational and self-reported data from local brokers and from school and care home leads who were involved in the project. And these were the aims. So we wanted to assess the potential impact of intergenerational linking on both younger and older people. We wanted to also explore how intergenerational linking might create opportunities for youth social action, and to identify ways in which intergenerational linking could provide or could enhance quality of life for old people living in care homes as well. We also wanted the project to think to be future focused and looking at how we could better understand how intergenerational links between schools and care homes for older people could be most effectively established, supported and sustained in the long run, and to generate meaningful lessons to influence how future initiatives might be shaped. So now we're going to have a look at the outcomes of the research, and for that I'm going to hand over to John.
Have we lost John there slightly?
Shall I do
Thank
this?
you for 11 organisations.
Oh, John, shall I jump in slightly? So I think we might just have lost John on his internet just slightly there, so I'll jump in. So you can see the 11 organisations that were part of the project. So we had groups all the way from Sunderland down to Cornwall. And the organisations were all charities or part of local councils, but they were varied in their expertise and their background. So some were experts in theatre or nature, religious, perhaps, or global education. And this meant that as a national team, we were really able to gather many different approaches to intergenerational linking and learn along the way and learn from that variety. So in total, we had at least 230 organisations, so that included 116 schools and youth groups and 114 care homes. And they took part in the Intergenerational Linking project between 2019 and 2022. And an estimated 4,000 young people and 2,000 older people living in care homes across the country took part. So to our knowledge, this constitutes the largest nationally coordinated intergenerational programme and evaluation ever to take place in England. And an additional focus for this programme delivery was that young people from less socioeconomically advantaged backgrounds would be targeted. And we know that the data obtained from the Office of National Statistics, measuring that relative deprivation, showed that approximately half of the participating schools and care homes were located in the top 30% most deprived and disadvantaged local areas in England. So we know that we were reaching that target. So the schools that took part were predominantly primary schools, which was expected, given that we were targeting that age group of 5 to 14. But we did also have 10 secondary schools and we had 4 special schools with us there as well. John, are you back again here?
Yeah, I think so. Have you got me? Yeah. Hello, everybody. Sorry about that. The care homes that took part were mostly medium or large, so between 20 and 50 beds, and most had extra care needs such as nursing or dementia specialisms within them.
So there are so many stories from these intergenerational experiences that took place, and a huge variety of the types of activities, so including crafts and gardening and storytelling. We found from the research that most links tended to have between 4 and 6 interactions, and that was found to be a good balance between keeping things manageable for those involved, but also being enough to create that space for meaningful relationships to develop. And obviously, as Bryony was saying, given the backdrop of the various COVID restrictions that we were working with, there was a mixture of activities that took place either inside the care home, sometimes outside the care home, sometimes online, and sometimes through kind of remote exchanges. And we also found that many of our local brokers engaged with other organisations within their local areas to really enhance the project. So perhaps working with other theatre companies or nature companies or local artists. So here we'd really like to show you a short video, and this comes from Woven Nest, who are one of our local projects, and they're based up in Newcastle and Sunderland. And again, I'm just going to hand over to Amy, who's going to share that video or a little snip of the video for you.
New Bottle Primary Academy and Paddock Star Manor Care Home had some great connections, including 4 garden meetups to create the wackiest of stories together. When it was winter and they couldn't meet in person, children interviewed residents over Zoom about their favourite things and created a series of bespoke artwork for their care home friends. Then, with the help of a local artist, we installed them into the care home. Residents loved getting involved with deciding where each frame should go. What do you think then, Ophelia?
Oh, they're lovely.
Are you pleased with them?
I am, yes, very. A fortune for them, wouldn't it?
Meanwhile, children at Dunhill Academy became food waste warriors. At Halloween, they gave residents recipe cards for different ways to eat pumpkin. And then they also used food scraps as fabric dye and stamps to create 4 tablecloths for their intergenerational tea parties. West Rainton Primary and Springfield Lodge Care Home decided to hold the Festival of Cool and celebrate all things that were cool to them. Visitors from Springfield Lodge came along to the school and enjoyed popcorn and hot dogs, tried their luck in a raffle, got their faces painted and saw the children parade their handmade banner. It was definitely very cool. Don't forget St. Joseph's. Isaac and our team led workshops with children from Hawthorne Primary School, and they were exploring the topics that they'd like to look at with the residents from St. Joseph's. As part of these workshops, they worked on characterisation, voice, confidence building, teamwork skills. Next, we sent the questions over to St. Joseph's and recorded their answers. And they created a story of their own too. And from there, the radio show was born.
Throughout the summer holidays, I made a chocolate brownie cake. It was so yummy. What about you? Did you do anything nice?
Yes, I have actually. I've been playing with my cute little rabbits. There's 2 foods that they really like. It's cabbage, celery.
My name's Ava. What's your favourite film?
Well, Ava, I think my favourite film was Sound of Music, and I loved the way they ran up the mountains and it looked lovely.
I call myself a long, long way to run.
Thank you, Amy. I think that does really show the huge variety and creativity of things that were happening. And we found from the data that the intergenerational interactions that were perceived as the most effective were, first of all, those that were simple, so simple but regular and thoughtful. And those were the interactions that they didn't become complicated or onerous for either the school or the care home, but they did really enable the children and the older people to become comfortable in each other's company. We found that it was effective when activities were linked to seasonal events, so things like Christmas or Valentine's Day or the Queen's Jubilee celebrations. These were some of the easiest to organise and the most rewarding, as both of the settings were eager to engage in activities surrounding these events, and they really provided a good foundation for conversation, for creativity, and for learning together. And activities and experiences that were student or resident-led ideas, these were most effective when they were designed together as shared experiences, as opposed to something that was a giver and recipient dynamic. So having that shared sense of purpose really contributed to effective interactions, as well as activities that involved some sort of social action. So like beach cleaning to help the environment, they were also commonly reported as some of the most successful. And we also found that in-person activities generally yielded the more positive and meaningful interactions between the children and the older people. Although the virtual meetings were seen as a good way to maybe start those relationships and maintain the connections when obviously the physical interactions weren't possible, as we were working through that global pandemic era. So we did have to be creative with that. Ruth, one of our local brokers, she's based in Leicester. She had a particularly successful link between Asra House Care Home and Abbey Mead Primary School. And these are based literally next door to each other. So for them, when the COVID restrictions obviously made visiting impossible at the beginning, the relationships were initiated through remote connections and exchanges. So they had wonderful words of wisdom photo messages that you can see on the screen, and they were sent to the school and to the children, and the children replied with letters and curious questions. And it was that interaction that was simple and manageable, but successfully started the link. And as time went on and as the link developed, the children visited to sing Christmas carols in the car park and to the residents who were in the conservatory. And they delivered Christmas gifts and hot cross buns. And again, it was those activities that were linked to seasonal events that worked really well. In the spring, they did a gardening project together that you can see in the picture with the support of One Planet Matters, and together older people and children planted trees and they felt a shared sense of purpose through this activity. And as the year progressed, face-to-face visits inside the care home finally became possible, and children went and read to the residents. They created rangoli patterns and played games together. And this link also included the older people attending the school to take part in colourful Holi celebrations in the playground and to watch Diwali and Christmas performances. That face-to-face really works well. And as well as having classes take part in the activities during the school day, for this primary school, they also created an after-school club, and they called it the Generation of Fun Club. So it's a group of 12 children who visited the care home each Tuesday after school, and they discussed the activities on a half-termly basis. And really giving ownership to the participants themselves gave real depth to this link and made it so successful. So now we're going to have a little look at some of the impacts of the project. So from our survey data that the school leads completed and some of the data from the brokers that we collected, the main impact for young people fell into these three themes that you've got on the screen. So first of all, intergenerational joy. So the project created joy and fun for young people. As this young person from Bradford said, the project made me feel joyful because we're linking with older people and doing fun activities with them. We also found that social connection and a growth in self-confidence was another impact. So these children talk about their growth in confidence with speaking and with playing games with the residents. And learning together and sharing knowledge was another impact. So this child that we've got this quote from had found great awe and wonder from finding out more about the stories of each of the residents, a little bit like Henry was saying at the very beginning. So these children are from a school in Bury, and they're going to share a little bit about what they've learned through intergenerational linking. We do apologise, the sound is quite quiet on this, so if at this stage you're able to turn your volume up to the max, please do.
I've learned that people in the care home can teach you new things and can entertain you.
I have learned you need to treat old people like you treat young people, because old
people have important lives like you.
And in terms of further impacts of young people then, so many of our school leads completed a post-survey at the end of the academic year, and data from this showed that 76.5% of the school leads that completed it reported that young people looked forward to the visits to the care home. 73.5% of school leads reported that young people spoke about residents outside of the visits, so indicating that the impact extended beyond the visit itself. 61.8% of the school leads that completed the survey reported that young people formed relationships with individual older residents in person. And there were particular impacts for children with additional social, educational or behavioural needs, particularly in a few of the special schools that were involved. And our local brokers felt that these schools had more flexibility in their curriculum and were really trying to reach out beyond the school community to prepare their children for life in the real world. The case study that I mentioned before from Leicester was one example where there are particular impacts for young people from diverse cultural and linguistic backgrounds. And the children and residents of these settings are predominantly of South Asian heritage. And so the ability to use languages other than English when communicating had been a real strength element of that partnership. It really helped, sorry, I've just lost my words just slightly. It really helped the older people feel less pressure to use English, perhaps if that wasn't their language of choice. So easing any anxiety that they might have around communication. But more so, it had given the children a real practical purpose to use their language skills as part of their schoolwork. So speaking sometimes of community languages is sometimes not considered relevant for outside of the home. And to have this skill recognised by their peers and their teachers as a strength and an advantage was a really powerful and a positive outcome of intergenerational linking in this context. In addition, the project was particularly impactful for young people who were perhaps dealing with bereavement or didn't have grandparents of their own. So we had one little boy who had come into a care home and had recently lost his dad. He was quite nervous, quite shy, and had really clicked with one of the men in the care home. Spent a long time walking with that gentleman and talking together and completing activities together. And at one stage had said, actually, I only live down the road and maybe we could come and spend some time with you again. And he was really excited about that. And finally, there was impact for young people relating to social action. And a large part, as Tom was saying at the beginning, a large part of the funding for this project came from the I Will Fund, which aims to create high quality youth social action opportunities. And for us, that was through intergenerational linking. So we found that intergenerational linking really brought volunteering to life for young people. It gave young people a real understanding of being active citizens within their local community, becoming more aware of others. And the project also created a legacy for social action, as this quote from a local broker shows. So here, the children have not only gained experience of the world of social care, but also really been inspired to consider a future career in that sector as well. And now
so in terms of impact for the older people who were living in care homes, again, joy was a clear theme. Put quite simply from this resident involved in the Bristol project, oh, today was been like having a second childhood. Social connectedness was another theme in terms of impact for older people. Brokers reported that residents communicated more not just with the children, but also with each other because they were all in the same room and engaged in activities together. There was banter going on between them that perhaps wasn't there before, and care home staff were pleased that the children had sparked that. Intergenerational linking also had an impact on older people's sense of purpose and gave opportunities for sharing learning. Looking at these quotes, care home staff have noticed residents purposely staying awake to be part of a session and a feeling of being alive again. Data from the post-survey by care home leads showed that 66.7% of care home leads reported that residents described themselves as happier during and after intergenerational sessions. 52.4% of care home leads reported that residents were more talkative than usual during an intergenerational session. There were also marked benefits from intergenerational linking for certain residents, including those with dementia, depression, sensory impairments, or from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. We also found that the project created a ripple of effect as the impact spread into the broader community. The impact for the programme was not confined to children from a specific class, but could be felt more widely as schools started to embed their links and the social action ethos of the project within whole school activities. For links associated with religious organisations, this provided opportunities for the impact of the project to spread throughout local parishes or church communities, benefits of which were felt by care home staff and residents' families, and contributed to care homes becoming more integrated within the local community, led to local brokers forming links with other organisations and networks within their community, or helping to develop the work of the organisation into new areas or sectors.
Thank you, John. So in terms of evaluation of the programme delivery and how that was set up, at the outset of the project, there was consensus among project, school and care home leads that the intergenerational linking programme would be considered successful if it resulted in mutually positive experience for younger and older people and sustainable and lasting relationships between organisations and individuals. And we found that 95% of care home leads who completed our follow-up survey reported that their residents appeared to enjoy the intergenerational interactions very much. 91% of the school leads who completed the follow-up survey reported that their children appeared to enjoy the intergenerational interactions very much. And 90% of the school and the care home leads reported that they would recommend intergenerational linking to others. We also found that 80% of the care home leads who completed the follow-up survey reported that they would definitely continue or run an intergenerational linking programme again. And 71% of the school leads who completed the survey also reported that they would definitely continue or run an intergenerational linking programme again. So with those, we are really proud and extremely pleased with the success of that project. So data that we collected from the local brokers found that these 4 elements worked particularly well in the design of the project. So the broker-led model, the resources that were provided and supported, the support structures of the national team, and the creativity and the flexibility that went with the programme. So here I'm going to invite Ellie Robinson-Carter. So Ellie is from the Sensory Trust in Cornwall to speak. Ellie was one of our local brokers and she's going to share her thoughts on some of these elements that worked well for her and some of the challenges that she faced as a local broker. Hi, Ellie.
Hi, Amy. Thanks very much. So just to start with, so obviously my role was to connect 10 care homes and 10 schools in Cornwall. So building the relationships, supporting with activity delivery and booking transport if schools are visiting care homes and vice versa, and just having the time to support and motivate people, especially in environments where time and resources are limited, such as schools and care homes. So starting with support structures, so this included support from the national team, which was My Home Life England and the Linking Network, which was really invaluable throughout the whole project. And it allowed us as brokers to have a direct point of contact for any queries or concerns that might be raised throughout the project. And the other part of the support was the peer support from the other brokers in the project, so that was really valuable. So as part of the sharing sessions that we'd have, we would have themed conversations, sharing resources with each other and activities that had worked well as discussing challenges. So it was really helpful to have that space to share and support each other. And I think as a local broker, we just really appreciated the flexibility from the national team and the trust that we had to deliver the programme in a way that worked for the area that we were in, as well as for our partners. So for us in Cornwall, covering quite a wide area, we decided to have 2 cluster areas, so 5 care homes and schools in one area and 5 in another. And that worked really well in terms of kind of then fostering connections between those care homes and schools in those 2 cluster areas. We also broke up our kind of activities into 3 main activities, so one per term for each link. with incidental activities or smaller activities running. So for example, if a school's at a concert, they could then record that and share it with the care home. So finding ways of supporting the schools and care homes to not add work for them, but just find ways of just sharing what they're doing anyway. And in terms of resources, so as brokers, we really valued both the resources, training and coaching provided by the national team, and being able to contribute to the development of additional resources to support future intergenerational work. So, and again, sharing that across the brokers was really helpful. And coming to creativity and flexibility, so starting this project during the COVID pandemic, obviously there are many challenges that come with that, but it also provided a really unique context where the opportunity of social interaction with others, particularly for those living and working in care homes, took on new meaning and value. So it also led to creative ways of engaging through virtual meetings and letter or gift exchanges, which enabled older and younger people to build and maintain relationships when physical interactions weren't possible. And I think something that we found was, because of the way the pandemic and restrictions worked, we started off with remote activities with all of our links, and then built a kind of in-person connection later on, which actually I think worked really well. So for example, we designed a project called the Forest of Hope, where we invited residents and young people to share letters using unpainted leaves. And the Royal Mail sort of acted as the wind blowing the leaves across the county. And it was a really nice way of building anticipation before they met in person later in the year. And then coming to the challenges. So as I say, starting this programme in COVID, obviously there were lots of challenges, both in terms of communication and engagement from some schools and care homes. Time constraints, obviously with care homes and schools at the best of times, you know, time and resources are limited and constrained. So this was obviously exacerbated by the pandemic. And practical and logistical challenges. So this included travel to and from the school or care home, which obviously can sometimes be expensive. And so obviously getting a whole class of children over to a care home, even just 10 minutes up down the road, can cost kind of a few £100s. So having the support of this project to do that obviously was really helpful, but it did raise questions about sustainability for those links, etc. So other challenges were having enough adult supervisors to accompany the children, getting photo consent from parents and also the residents, and managing the number of children visiting the care home at one time. And for some care homes, the difficulty with technology during virtual interactions with schools, which obviously was something that we learned on quite a bit with COVID restrictions. And also, for example, only being able to meet outdoors in the winter months when COVID had certain restrictions with COVID. And I guess for us, kind of, so going through this list here, so with engagement, I think with certain links, there was a lack of engagement. So we're fortunate that there are a lot of links that engage really well in the project. But we had one link, for example, where nothing really came of it in the end. And we hope that they can keep a link themselves as now the project's ended. But I think just, yeah, that was just part of it, I guess, is that some worked and some didn't so well. Communication, so each care home and school we felt wanted to communicate slightly differently. So it might not be that emails might work for one care home and school, but another might prefer calls and vice versa. So we found that keeping a spreadsheet of all the kind of details like that was really helpful, because it kind of, you weren't reinventing the wheel each time you tried to make contact. And also providing appropriate support to maintain the links. Some links needed more support than others. So some, by the time we got to the last main activity, were very happy to connect on their own without my support, but some still felt they needed that kind of middle person to be there to help with that connection. And again, that often came down to time and resources being limited. COVID-19 restrictions and lockdowns, obviously, like I say before, the inability to meet in person was a challenge at points, but we got used to having a plan A and a plan B. But sometimes you'd end up doing plan E or plan F sort of thing. It kind of constantly evolved, but that was fine. And it kind of, I think we built resilience throughout that process. And I think it just added more tools to our toolbox now. Obviously, in these environments, both school and care homes, I think care homes especially, staff turnover can be a challenge. Obviously, relationship building is really important with a project like this. And so it was that thing of trying to kind of find the right person that really got the project and really wanted to support it to happen. And if they then went on to a different role, etc., sometimes it was kind of starting again. But generally, so I think we learned something there around bringing in not just one member of staff into those conversations, but making sure that it was something that a few members of staff were engaged with, just to sort of build that resilience of the project and sustainability. So scheduling, so we had some issues with cancellations and scheduling issues, and sometimes, again, because of the nature of COVID especially, we'd have to cancel last minute, which sometimes caused, challenges in terms of just changing schedules, etc., for the school or care home. But everyone was generally really understanding about that, and just wanted to find ways to make it happen in the future. Recruitment of pupils and residents, so managing the fact that residents come and go as part of the nature of living in care homes, and ensuring that pupils felt supported and had a space to talk about that if they needed to. And finally, evaluation administrative tasks. So that was something that we were really passionate about, was trying to get as many people engaged in the research, and it was challenging sometimes to kind of get consent forms completed and surveys completed within the deadlines. And I think just kind of having to understand that for some it wasn't going to be possible. But yeah, that's just some points, I guess, is from being a local broker. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Ellie. So yeah, so helpful to hear your kind of on the ground experience, and also to recognise that yes, there were challenges with this, but to hear a little bit about how you kind of went around that, and how we can not mean that those challenges stop intergenerational linking from happening completely. It's so helpful. So thank you very much, Ellie, and brings me really nicely onto some of our key conclusions then. So the Care Home Plans Intergenerational Linking Project is the largest coordinated national initiative to set up intergenerational links between schools and care homes in England to date. And we think it marks a significant step forward for intergenerational practice. So our key conclusions were around the social value of intergenerational linking, and that our evaluation confirms some of the research that Bryony was talking about earlier, indicating the benefits to young and older people of intergenerational linking, and also demonstrates the positive effects for the wider community. The programme helped to promote wellbeing for older adults living in care homes and really stimulated engagement amongst young people, potentially planting that seed for future involvement in social action. And the success of the broker-led model, so that value of really having a local connector who brings together care homes and schools, really helps them to maintain their relationships during challenging times with staff turnover and workload. We think that that cannot be overstated, and it should be used as a blueprint for the future. And the relationship-centred approaches, so at its core, intergenerational linking is about building positive relationships that are meaningful, that are reciprocal, and that have the potential to be long-lasting. And we know that actually relationships take time to develop. So intergenerational linking needs to be considered as a journey rather than a sprint to the finish or just a one-off event. So in terms of ways forward, we feel that the priority for the future should be really about embedding and investing in intergenerational practice as part of our national approach to wellbeing, supported by that alignment with school curriculums, with Ofsted criteria, with Care Quality Commission criteria. And at this stage, I'm going to hand over to Linda Cowie. So Linda is one of the co-directors at the Linking Network, and she's going to say a few words about what this programme has meant for the Linking Network.
Thank you, Amy. As well as co-delivering the national work, we also led the intergenerational work in Bradford in phase 1 of the programme, starting in January 2020. So what next? Well, we are going to continue with the broker model, offering support to the school and care home, as a key point for us at the Linking Network was always about creating long-term links where the school and care home form a strong relationship, becoming part of each other's community. We were tasked back in 2020 with creating 10 links in Bradford, and we are now supporting 44 intergenerational links with equal numbers of primary and secondary schools on board. The photo we're showing you is a group of young people from a pupil referral unit in Bradford who meet with the older people on a regular basis and have formed caring relationships. Our ambition is that Bradford becomes an intergenerational city where every school in the district is connected to an older person's group. Just to say also, we've absolutely loved being part of this programme, working with My Home Life England, Dunhill Medical Trust and all the brokers in each area. And a huge thank you to the core team for their wonderful ongoing professional support to the work. It has been absolutely a joy to work with everyone. To conclude, the Linking Network will continue to support intergenerational work locally and nationally, and share the learning we have all acquired working together. Let's encourage every school to reach out and become enriched by intergenerational friendships. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Linda, really helpful. So using the learning from the project, as Linda was just saying, we have created a number of resources that can be used by others to support intergenerational linking. And I'm just going to share a couple of those things with you now. So firstly, we've created a handbook, and this is aimed at school and care home staff to guide them through setting up an intergenerational link. You can see, hopefully I'm just flicking through it here, you can see that there's a little bit about what intergenerational work is, some top tips, some ideas for activities. Now we can offer a printed copy of this, which you might not be able to see with the background, but we do have some printed copies of these as well. So if you would like a printed copy of this handbook or a number of printed copies, then Lynn is going to paste into the chat a link to a Google form. And if you fill in that Google form with your organisation and your address and a number of copies, we'll be able to get some shipped out to you. We do also have a number of other additional resources and things on the website. So again, Lynn's going to post the website address into the chat. You'll see here the project page with outputs and resources. So you can see that there's the electronic version of the handbook is on there. You can also download the full research report for the project, as well as a research summary. And there are a number of additional resources that will continue to be added to on here about activity ideas, resources that might be useful for getting started, book lists, that kind of thing. So please do take a look at that website and use it with all those resources that we've created. We want to be able to share that with as many people. So here at this stage, I'm now going to stop sharing that, and I'm going to hand over to Sarah Allport from the Dunhill Medical Trust, who together with the National Lottery and the I Will Fund have been funding the project. And Sarah's just going to say a few words.
Thank you, Amy. Just a few words to sort of sum up the webinar and the programme. And I think when a programme like this comes to an end, you can't help but reflect on how it all began. And I remember our first meeting as a project team was in a basement room at City University way back in March 2020. And as part of that meeting, we discussed this virus that was emerging and whether we thought it might have an impact on the programme. And we all decided that because the first stage of our linking programme was going to be remote anyway with online linking, we could always extend that a little bit, because the talk at the time was, you know, we might be quarantined for a few weeks and then it would all be over. And I think crucially, that meeting room had very little or no phone signal for most of us. So it was a shock at the end of the day to emerge and discover that the Prime Minister had actually locked the country down. And I wonder then, if we knew what we knew now, we would have actually still gone ahead with this programme. But we did, we went ahead. And I have to say, it's a real credit to the delivery team, My Home Life and the Linking Network, that they took on board whatever the last 2 years have thrown at them. We have changed plans, we've been flexible, as we tried to accommodate all the different restrictions that have been imposed on, well, two of the largest sections of society, care homes and schools. And equally, I must give due credit to the local projects, the brokers, the schools, the care home staff, the children and the older people. They have been so incredibly creative in how they've managed their linkages and activities and their youth social action. And along with the National Lottery Community Fund, our match funder, we are incredibly proud to have worked with them all to deliver such an amazing programme of work. And I think it's a testament to the commitment of social action and improving the lives of younger and older people that so many of them are continuing with this programme or with new links, even though this is formally ending. Therefore, I urge you all to try and seek out the project nearest to you. Their details are on the website, and to see if there's any way you can get involved to support them and perhaps use their knowledge to create some linkages of your own. Several of them are actually hosting their own celebration events. I think a couple of them actually are today. And the project team should be able to give you details of those when they become available. So thank you. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Sarah. And I think it's now over to Tom to just close up and finish things off for us.
Yeah, thank you, Amy, and thank you very much, Sarah. We've got about 2 or 3 minutes for any questions that you might want to pose using the Q&A button. There's a couple that have come in through at the moment. The first one from Maxine says, is funding still available? How do we express an interest in the Care Home Fans project? Well, of course, we are at the end of this programme. That doesn't mean that our activity stops. We are doing our best to try and find ways to keep this going. Some of it will rely on local funding, and we can try and support that where we can. But I think ultimately the core funding that for the team has now gone, sadly. And then Nathan asks, were there any reasons or barriers identified for smaller homes? And I think from other members of the team might want to come in, but what we noticed was that actually it probably wasn't about the size of the home. It was really about those very specific challenges that each individual care home was experiencing at that time. I mean, we know the challenges around workforce. We know that there's a lot of turnover of staff and managers, and a massive amount that is placed on them in terms of workload. So I think it was very tricky for some, but certainly the role of the broker was crucial there, because they could take some of the hard work away from them. Sue-Ann, who we know is manager over in North London of a care home, asked, will this webinar be shared? As I know it is recorded, I wish to share activities and colleagues. It is, Sue-Ann, we are recording it, and I think we'll send a link out. I'm looking at my team. Yes, they say yes, they are. So we don't seem to have any other questions that have come up as yet. So I think, given we have 2 minutes to go, that we might now just to sign off. So I want to thank the team, the care homes, the local brokers, the schools for making this project a success. But of course, in a way, it isn't a project. This is a starting point for our further future engagement. We thank you for joining us today. And we kind of know that now is the time, as Linda was saying, this is the time schools and care homes have really struggled through the pandemic and need our help more than ever. And we hope that you can work with us to realise our dream, our collective vision that every school is twinned to the care home, where younger and older people create beautiful moments of connection with one another. And we have a vision of a future generation that feel confident and connected with older people, with their community. And they recognise the vital role of care homes and the importance of ensuring that the community acts as friends and good neighbours to their local care homes. So from all of us, big thank you, and hope to hear from you soon. Bye-bye.